Good morning, students. Welcome back again. Today we are going to discuss a new chapter of English, that is from the textbook Flamingo, that is chapter number 3, right? The name of the chapter is Deep Water. It is a story about the writer itself. It is the story about the writer itself. What is the name of the writer? William O. Douglas. He talks about himself of overcoming the fear of deep water. Right? I'll tell you a short summary so it would be easy for you, or it would be interesting for you to understand this chapter. In this chapter, it is about the writer's journey of overcoming the fear of water. He had the fear of water, right? Means that is water phobia, which is deeply rooted in him since childhood. Since childhood, he had the fear of water phobia, right? How did he overcome the water fear? We'll look into the chapter, so it would be quite interesting. Open your textbook, that is page number 23, Deep Water. We'll know a little bit about the author. What is about the author? As this story is talking about the author itself. William Douglas, 1898 to 1980. Was born in Maine, Minnesota, after graduating with a Bachelor's of Arts in English and Economics. He spent 2 years teaching in high school in Yakima. However, he got tired of this and decided to pursue a legal career. Alright? He met Franklin D. Roosevelt at Yale and became an advisor and friend to the president. Douglas was a leading advocate of individual rights. See, Douglas was a leading advocate. By profession, he was an advocate of individual rights. He retired in 1975 with a term lasting 36 years. That means 36 years of service, and remains the longest serving justice in the history of the court, right? He worked for 36 years in the terms of justice. The following excerpt is taken from Of Men and Mountains by William O. Douglas. Nearly drowned in a swimming pool. He was once nearly drowned in a swimming pool. In this essay, he talks about his fear of water and thereafter how he finally overcomes it. Notice how the autobiographical part of the selection is used to support his discussion of fear. Right? It is an autobiography. When someone talks about himself in the form of a story, in form of a particular sequence or a chapter, it is all about an autobiography. Right? So here in this chapter, William O. Douglas was serving as a legal advocate, as in the law of justice. He served for 36 years, but he had a problem. What kind of problem? He had a water phobia, right? Once he was almost drowned in the swimming pool, and how he overcomes the fear of this deep water, right? That is all about this chapter. What we'll do is, we'll divide this chapter into 2 parts. 50% we are going to discuss today, and the remaining next part we are going to discuss in the next video, right? So the video won't be too lengthy and it won't be too boring for you. Right? Take out your textbook, page number 23. It had happened when I was 10 or 11 years old. Right? The author is talking about himself. I repeat it again. This is about the author itself. The author is talking about himself. I had decided to learn to swim. There was a pool at the YMCA in Yakima that offered exactly the opportunity. That was an opportunity to learn swimming. The Yakima River was treacherous, that means that was constantly flowing. Mother continuously warned against it and kept fresh in my mind the details of each drowning in the river. The river was deep and the water was flowing very fast. So his mother constantly, decided him, to tell him that if you go to that swimming area, right, you are going to be drowned one day. But the YMCA pool was safe, right? So that was an opportunity for the writer to learn swimming. At which place? At YMCA pool. It was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end, and while it was 9 feet deep at the other. The drop was gradual. Slowly the pool was, increasing its length in the terms of its deepness. At the initial level it was 2 to 3 feet deep, and as it goes on it was 9 feet deep on the other end. That was the size of the swimming pool, right? And that was an opportunity for the writer to learn swimming and come out or overcome the fear of water. I got a pair of water wings. Water wings are, always at the feet, right, to keep the balance. When you don't know about swimming, you are being given the water wings. So you can put it on your legs and you have to swim like this. And this is how you learn swimming at the initial level, right? And went to the pool. I hated to walk. See, on the next page, the Yakima River is given. So there is one chart of the river that has been flowing through his house, right? So that is not at all important. This is just for the general information. The chart has been given, right? Coming back to the next page, page number 25. Naked into it and show my skinny legs. That means the author was very slim. His legs were very skinny, so he was very slim. So he hated to walk, right, so that everyone can see his legs. That was the problem for the author. So he hated to walk to the swimming pool as the author was very slim, right? But I subdued my pride and did it. But he was, he had that a kind of a momentum in his heart that he actually wanted to learn swimming. So he didn't care about his physical structure, but he went into the pool. From the beginning, however, I had an aversion to the water. That means a kind of a fear, right? A negativity. When you have a kind of fear in your heart or in your mind, you try to avoid that place. And that was in the mind of author since beginning. That was the thing. When I was in it, this started when I was 3 or 4 years old. This actually started all this kind of fears and the negativity towards the water. That all kind of things started when the author was 3 to 4 years old. And father took me to the beach in California. He and I stood together in the surf, right? That is the surf on which they flow on the water, right? That is the kind of surf that is available on the beach. I hung on him, yet the waves knocked me down and swept over me, right? He was hanging on his father as he was 3 to 4 years old. He was taking the support and they went to the beach in California, right, on that particular, surf, right? And he had fallen there. And the water, overcame on him, right, as they were in the sea. I was buried in water. My breath was gone. I was frightened. Father laughed. But there was a terror in my heart at the overpowering force of the waves, right? 3 to 4 years of age, and when you are, fallen into the sea, at least that is in the corner, right? They are not going deep inside the sea, but on the edges of the sea, right? When once you fall, and when the water, pushes you, so obviously a 3-4 years child is going to have the fear, right? So since at that point of time, there was a fear for the author, and that is why he tries to justifies this chapter, that how he overcomes the particular fear. That is the name of the chapter, that is deep water. That is why the name of the chapter is deep water. He actually wanted to overcome the fear that is of deep water. That is why the name of the chapter is deep water, right? So at that point of time, when the author was 3 to 4 years old, at that time, right, he had that fear of deep water. But there was a terror in my heart at the overpowering force of the waves. My introduction to the YMCA swimming pool revived unpleasant memories and stirred childish fears. Right, when he went for the first time at the YMCA swimming pool, right, he remembered all that things. What happened at the beach with his father, and he was being pushed by the waves of the seas, right? He remembered and recalled all the memories, and that again created fear in his mind when he was standing at the YMCA pool, right? But in a little while, I gathered confidence. I paddled with my new water wings, watching the other boys and trying to learn by apping them. There were few boys, right, who were learning all this swimming process, right? So he gathered the confidence, he watched them, even they were wearing the water wings. So that built a kind of confidence for the author that even these boys can do, then even I can learn swimming, right? So that was the momentum or the confidence that happened inside the particular brain or inside the idea, and that developed a confidence actually in the mind of the author to learn swimming, to overcome the fear of deep water by going into the YMCA swimming pool. I did this 2 or 3 times on different days and was just beginning to feel at ease in the water when the misadventure happened. Right, he went there for 2 to 3 days and he tried to learn everything. Right, he was enjoying, he was actually overcoming the fear of water, but suddenly there happened something which again created a terror. What happened? Look into the next paragraph. I went to the pool when no one else was there. See, actually what happened, he went to the pool when no one else was there. So he didn't knew the swimming process properly. He was just learning. He was just getting the confidence. And what did he do? He went to the swimming pool when no one was there. Right? The place was quiet. The water was still. Right? And the tilled bottom was white and clean as bathtub. The end. What was the end? That was 9 feet deep. Right, he was sitting over there and there was still water, there was clean water. So you can see the bottom of the particular pool. Right, he was sitting over there. I was timid about going alone, so I sat on the side of the pool to wait for others. He was waiting for others. Right, he was actually he wanted to go alone in the swimming pool when no one else was there, but the kind of fear that he had still in his mind, he was waiting for some other people. If there are some other people, I'll dive or jump into the pool. That was the condition he was going through, whether to go alone or whether to wait for someone to come so that he may get the momentum and dive into the pool. Right? That was a double mind concept that was going on at that point of time. I had not been there long when in came a big bruiser of a boy. Right, he was sitting there, he had no idea, and what happened? A big boy came over there, probably 18 years old. He had thick hair on his chest. He was a beautiful physical specimen. That means he was good in the terms of physical structure, height and body. Right, so 18 years old, good physical structure. Right, with legs and arms that showed ripping muscles. Right, he had good muscles also. That means the physical structure was quite good. He yelled. High skinny, that means he yelled to that boy. He yelled to the author. Who was the author? William O. Douglas. As his legs were very thin, so that boy called him skinny. Right? How do you like to be ducked? What does that mean? That if I throw you in the water which is 9 feet deep, would you like it? That was the question was being asked by the 18 years boy to the author. That how would you like to be ducked? That means what will you do if I throw you into the swimming pool? Right? With that, he picked me up and tossed me into the deep end. He suddenly picked the author, he tossed it, that means he rotated once in the air, and what happened? He thrown the author into the deep end. That was 9 feet. I landed in a sitting position. You know how to sit, right? What is your sitting position? So he landed in a sitting position, swallowed the water. He swallowed the water. The author swallowed the water as he didn't have the confidence, right? He was just on the learning process. So he didn't knew when to, breathe, when to breathe in, when to breathe out. He didn't knew the process actually. And he was suddenly being pulled up and thrown into the 9 feet deep end by an 18-year-old boy. And what happened? He swallowed the water and he went into the sitting position and went at once to the bottom. He went directly to the bottom. I was frightened, but not yet frightened out of my wits. On the way down, I planned. When he touched the bottom, he was actually frightened, but there was no other option. He had to fight it back. He had to fight it back. So what did he do? On the way down, I planned, when my feet hit the bottom, I would make a big jump, come to the surface. He would hit there, he's with his legs, and come to the surface. That is what he planned when he was in the water. Lie flat on it and pedal to the edge of the pool. That is what he was planning when he was deep inside that pool that was 9 feet. It seemed long way down. It seemed long way down. So you can imagine 9 feet is quite a deep, right? And the power of the water, that is too much, right? Water has too much power, and if you don't know swimming, obviously it is going to take you down, right? You don't know how to move your hands and legs, it is going to be a trouble. So he was waiting for the deep end to touch his feet, but that was taking too long. That was taking too long. Those 9 feet were more like 90. It seemed like 90 feet for the author, right? As the end was not coming. And before I touched bottom, my lungs were ready to burst. His lungs were ready to burst. That means he had swallowed that amount of water. But when my feet hit bottom, I summoned all my strength and made what I thought was a great spring upwards. And suddenly his touch fits the bottom, right? And again he gains the momentum suddenly, and he comes up. He tries to jump up. I imagined I would bob to the surface like a cork. Instead, I came up slowly. He imagined that if I touch my feet at the bottom, it would spring, just like a spring. What does we do? If we, pull a spring, and when we leave it, it goes high in the air. That is what he actually thought that would happen with his body. But that was not the result. He was coming up slowly. He was coming up slowly. Why he was coming up slowly? Because he had swallowed the water. He had swallowed the water. I came up slowly. I opened my eyes and saw nothing. I opened my eyes and saw nothing but water. But water. Water that had a dirty yellow tinge to it. I grew panically. He was suddenly, very panicked that he was not able to come out, right? When water is being swallowed, the lungs are being filled with the water and you don't know how to swim. So obviously you are going to be, in a more panic situation, a kind of a fear that would lead to death if you are not able to come out of the pool, right? That would be the condition. So he grew panically. I reached up as if to grab a rope. There was a particular rope at the corner, right? He was waiting for that rope to be grabbed. And my hands clutched only at water. He was trying to catch the rope, but he was not successful. He was not successful, right? There was only water everywhere. I was suffocating. The author was suffocating. I tried to yell, but no sound came out. He tried to even yell. He tried to, talk in a loud manner. He tried to create a huge sound. But what happened? He could not even create a sound as he was deep in the water. That was again the problem. Then my eyes and nose came out of water, but not my mouth. I failed at the surface of the water. Swallowed and choked. He was totally swallowed and choked by the water, right? As he was not sure enough how to swim in the deep end of the swimming pool, right? And once you have that fear factor, once you are panicking in the water, it would be even more difficult to come out of that water, right? I tried to bring my legs up, but they hung as dead weights, paralyzed and rigid. He even tried to move his legs, right? But his legs were working as a paralyzed person. So you know who is a paralyzed person, right? Who cannot even move his legs properly. Who cannot even stand on his legs properly. That was the situation of the author in that swimming pool. And all these things happened because of that 18 years old boy. A great force was pulling me under. I screamed, but only the water heard me. He tried to scream and scream, that is help, help. But it was only the water that was hearing his voice, as there was no one, that we have seen in the previous paragraphs, right? He was sitting there on the edge of the swimming pool. He was waiting for others, right? As there was no one except that boy. And that boy was quite mischievous. He threw the author into the swimming pool. So even he tried to, create a sound, tried to create a scream. but that was again not a success. It was only the water who was listening the noise. There was no one else in the swimming pool. I had started on the long journey back to the bottom of the pool. Again he was going deep inside, that is on the 9 feet down, touching the bottom again. Right? That process was happening for the second time. I struck at the water as I went down, expending my strength as one in a nightmare fights an irresistible force. I had lost all my breath. My lungs ached. Ached means they stopped working for an initial level. Right? My head throbbed. That means his head was quite heavy. I was getting dizzy. Dizzy means, you are not active. Right? In Gujarati we say Bebhan tho, right? That is what he was on the edge of all that process, right? He was not in a mental or in proper stable condition, right? But I remembered the strategy. I would spring from the bottom of the pool and come like a cork to the surface. Again, he thought when he was going down inside the water, his heart was, feeling heavy, his head was heavy, his lungs were filled with water. So again, he suddenly got the strength, and again he remembered in his mind that again once I touch the bottom of the feet, right, that is at the corner of that particular swimming pool, which was 9 feet deep actually, again I'll jump like a spring. Again I'll jump like a spring. He created this idea when he was inside the water going down for the second time. He was again regaining his strength to come back to the surface of the water. Right? I would lie flat on the water, strike out with my arms and thresh with my legs. Then I would get to the edge of the pool and be safe. That is what he actually thought. I went down endlessly. I opened my eyes, nothing but water with a yellow glow, dark water that one could not see through. 9 feet is quite deep, right? And once you go deep inside and you are not able to see it clearly, right? You are 9 feet down the water and you open your eyes. What will you find? You will only find water. And you cannot even see the surface area or the corner area where there is sunlight or where there is any kind of the rope that you can catch and come out of water. Right? He could not see anything except water. And then sheer stark terror seized me. Again there was a terror in his mind. Terror that knows no understanding. A kind of a fear factor which doesn't allow you to think of anything else. Right? That kind of fear factor. No understanding power. Terror that knows no control. No control on your own body. That kind of terror. Terror that no one can understand. Only you can understand. That kind of terror. Right? Who has not experienced it? I was shrieking. That means he was vibrating now. Underwater. I was paralyzed underwater. He felt that he was paralyzed. His legs and hands and his physical body movement were not giving the support that he wanted inside the water. That kind of fear factor happened to the author inside that swimming pool. Stiff, rigid with fear. Even the screams in my throats were frozen. Now, what was the critical condition? Even he tried to create a scream. He tried to create a sound of help. But that was also frozen. He was even not able to, create a kind of a scream inside the water. And practically, when you are 9 feet down the water, if you scream, your voice is not going to, come out of the water. That is the power and the strength of water. Right? Only my heart and the pounding in my head said that I was still alive. His heart was still working. His heart was still working, and that was the brain senses that were telling to him that you are still alive. Your heart is alive and your brain is active. So that was the only thing that made the author alive. Right? And then in the midst of the terror came a touch of reason. I must remember to jump when I hit the bottom. Again he thought for the third time. Right? That again when I might touch, feet to the bottom of that swimming pool, again I'll jump to the higher surface. Right? I looked for ropes. At last I felt the tiles under me. My toes reached out as if to grab them. I jumped with everything I had. He jumped with everything, the power and the strength that he had inside the water. He tried for the third time, right, when his feet touched down the tiles. But the jump made no difference. The water was still around me. I looked for ropes, ladders, water wings, nothing but water. He couldn't find anything, any kind of support except water. What was about that 18 years boy, where he was standing, whether he was enjoying or whether he ran away from that place, we don't know. That has not been clearly mentioned in the story, right? But what happens, we'll look into the later on stages. A mass of yellow water held me. Stark terror took an even deeper hold on me. Now we was getting on a stark terror, right? That means on a higher terror. If you don't know swimming, and if someone throws you deep inside the middle of the sea, what kind of terror would you feel? You can imagine. If you are not clear with the swimming concepts and the process, right? And someone suddenly throw you in the midst of the sea, what you are going to do? The terror that you have at that point of time, the same terror the author was experiencing in his particular mind at that time when he was thrown in the swimming pool. I shook and trembled with fright. My arms wouldn't move. My legs wouldn't move. I tried to call for help, to call for mother. Nothing happened. He even tried to call his mother. Actually, his mother was not even present at the swimming pool, but that is the soft concern that we have. The first thing that we talk or we remember is our mother during the time of difficulties, right? So even he took the name of his mother and tried to jump back from the swimming pool. Everything he tried practically to come out of that water, but nothing happened, right? Next, and then strangely there was a light. I was coming out of the awful yellow water. He was now coming out of the water. At least my eyes were. My nose was almost out too, right? There was a light. Light means a kind of hope. He was coming out of the water now, right? His eyes were out of the water. His nose was almost out of the water. Then I started down a third time. Again he did it for the third time, maybe fourth time, right? He jumped and tried to come out. I sucked for air, and when suddenly his nose came out, out of the water for a few seconds, he tried to suck the air as much as he can and got into water again. The yellowish light was going out. Then all effort ceased. I relaxed. Even my legs felt limp, and a blackness swept over my brain. That means he was fainted. He tried everything. He even once came out, his nose and eyes and mouth, everything came out of the water. He sucked the air as much as he can. What happened? He again went to the water. And this time when he went down, he was not able to come out. He was not mentally active, right? See what it says. My legs felt limp. That means his legs were not working. And blackness swept over my brain. The brain stopped to give the orders, right? It wiped out fear. It wiped out terror. That means he was not at all conscious. There was no more panic. He didn't knew what it was happening with him, right? There was no more panic as he was not conscious. It was quiet and peaceful. Nothing to be afraid of. That's nice. To be drowsy, to go to sleep. No need to jump. Too tired to jump. It's nice to be carried gently, to float along in the space. Tender arms around me. Tender arms like mothers. Now I must go to sleep. Right? He gave it up at the end. And suddenly when you are not conscious, obviously you are going to float on the water. Just like a dead body. What happens to a dead body if you put it into the water? It floats on the water. And that was the thought, and he was becoming drowsy, unconscious, and the thoughts were that it's easy to go to sleep. So obviously I'll float on the water. No tension, no hard works, no jumps, nothing, right? Tender arms around me, tender arms like my mother's. Now I must go to sleep. That means now I must go to sleep. Then that is the end. I tried everything to come out of that swimming pool, but the end is I must go to sleep. That means I am going to become unconscious, right? I crossed the oblivion. Oblivion means the unconsciousness. He reached to that level, and the curtain of life fell. That means he became unconscious at the end. Curtain of life. That means you are active. That is your curtain of life. But once your curtain of life fails, that means you are not active. So if you are not active, that means you are not conscious. And that happened with the author in the swimming pool. The next, I remember I was lying on my stomach besides the pool, vomiting. And suddenly he was lying on the corner of the pool. Someone took him out of the water, right? And he was, lying on the corner of the swimming pool, right? He was on the stomach besides the pool, and he was vomiting. The chap that threw me in was saying, but I was only fooling. The chap, who is the chap? The boy who is 18 years old. He took him out of the water, right? The chap that threw me in was lying, but I was only fooling. That is what he said. I was only making fun of it. I didn't knew that you don't know swimming. And I didn't knew that this would be the situation. So what did that boy say? I was just fooling. I was just making fun. Someone said, the kid nearly died. There were again few people who entered over here, and someone from that people who were gathered together to save that boy said, the kid nearly died. Be all right now. Let's carry him to the locker room. That means to the restroom. Several hours later, I walked home. I was weak and trembling. After a few hours, he went to his home. He was frightened. He had again the fear. Why he was actually to the swimming pool? To come out the fear of deep water. But again, what happened at the end? Someone threw him into the water, and he had the fear again. So he was weak and he was trembling, and I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. I couldn't eat that night. That was the kind of fear that was happening in his mind, right? He couldn't even eat the food at night. For a days, a haunting means kind of a touching fear that was in my heart. The slightest extrication upsetted me, making me wobbly. Wobbly means kind of weak in the knees and sick to my stomach. Right? That was the end of it. He was not even able to move out of his room. He couldn't eat for that night. His heart was very weak, and anything that thinking about that water made him upset, making him wobbly, that is weak in the knees, that is his strength that lies in his legs, and sick to my stomach, that he was vomiting. He was recalling each and everything. Right, when he was at his home, he was in his room, right, that kind of fear factor that he had, right, and he couldn't come out of that fear again. That was the thing when he actually came out of the swimming pool. I never went back to the pool. I feared water. I avoided it whenever I could. All right. He had so much fear that he never went to the pool again. He constantly avoided it. He had the fear of water, right? And he never went back to the pool again. Right? This is the story. We are stopping over here, right? What happens in the climax, in the next phase, right? How he actually comes out of the fear. What are the things that he does? What are the things that makes him, more stronger towards the deep water, and how does he actually overcomes? What are the things that, makes him overcomes the fear of deep water? That we are going to discuss in the next phase, in the next video, right? I hope the story and the concept is clear till now. I still request the students to read it till here, all right? read it twice, so again the story would be quite more interesting. The end, the climax, we are going to discuss in the next session, right? Please make a note of this. Thank you.